Let's be real, in the Yu-Gi-Oh anime, most characters, even main protagonists, play terrible, inefficient decks and archetypes. Sometimes anime characters will stick with bad decks because of personal reasons, like they were given to them by a family member or friend, or them feeling like a deck represents them and their nature as a duelist. But every so often, there'll be a character that breaks the mold. One who plays a deck so powerful it even crosses over to real-life Yu-Gi-Oh and sees play on both fronts. In this video, I'll be breaking down 6 such Yu-Gi-Oh anime characters. Just to be clear, the rules are the same as in my first video. Number 1, the characters' decks have to have done extremely well on the highest levels of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Number 2, the cards have to actually have been released and similar to their anime versions. So, without further ado, welcome to another 6 characters from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime whose deck was way too powerful for real-life Yu-Gi-Oh! Also, a spoiler warning is now in effect. Number 1, Yugioh, Performapals, and Pendulum Magicians, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc V. I totally forgot about Yugioh on my last list, so I'm making up for it by putting him right at the beginning of this one. On Arc V, Yugioh's deck primarily consists of 3 archetypes, Performapal, Pendulum Magician, and Odd Eyes. Of those 3, 2 of them have been meta-defining at some point. So much so, 2 of the most notorious Performapal monsters in Performapal Scroll Combat Joker and Performapal Monkey Board have both been banned in the TCG. At the height of their power, Performapals were actually so dominant in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! With their hybrid Performapal and Friends deck that builds were taking up to 90% of top cuts at YCS level events. That is 100% tier 0 status, and this led to Konami having to enact an emergency ban list just so that other decks could compete.
よし、これなら俺はスケール1のエンタメイトモンキーボードとスケール6のエンタメイトギタートルでペンデュラムスケールをセッティング。
The Pendulum Magician side of Yugioh's arsenal was just as formidable. After the release of 2015's Master of Pendulum Structure deck, Pendulum Magician build shot right to the top of the competitive meta. Cards like Oath Dragon, Dragon Pit, and Wisdom Eye Magician were powerhouses that helped the deck win YCS championships. Not only was the deck super fast and consistent, but just as scary, it could even make cards like Naturia Beast turn 1 to completely lock the opponent out of using spell cards. Number 2, Takeru Homaru / Soulburner, Salamangreat, Yu-Gi-Oh! Reigns. This is a duelist I'm convinced Konami just wasn't going to let fail. Not only was Soulburner near unbeatable in Yu-Gi-Oh! Reigns Season 2, where he only lost a single duel out of over half a dozen, but his Salamangreat archetype was overloaded to hell and back. To put it in simplest terms, Konami basically gathered up a bunch of cards that had already been proven to be completely broken and copy-pasted their effects onto Salamangreat cards. This practically ensured the deck would be all-world powerful, as almost every key Salamangreat card was just as strong or stronger than a card that had spent significant time on the Forbidden and Limited list. An Infernity Barrier, a Reinforcements of the Army, a Soul Charge, Monster Reborn hybrid, an MX Saber Invoker, and an Armageddon Knight. All this together in a single archetype. What could possibly go wrong? Well, everything. Predictably, the second structure deck Soulburner was released and Salamangreat were at full power, the deck immediately got second place at a YCS, and it was without a doubt a top 3 deck in the game. Even after a direct hit on the very next ban list, Salamangreats would still go on to win the European Championship and 2019 Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship, so the deck basically laughed at the ban list hits, but to top that, after a second straight season of ban list hits in the TCG, the deck was still going strong with recent YCS finishes as strong as the quarterfinals. By the way, I didn't even mention the deck's absurdly powerful fusion monster that's an OTK win condition itself. If you think Aoi Zaizen getting OTK'd by Violent Chimera in the Reigns anime was bull, just understand that the same exact play was used in the European Championship Finals.
勝つのは俺だってことさ。バイオレントキマイラのさらなる効果発動。元々の攻撃力と異なるモンスターとバトルするとき、自身の攻撃力を倍にできる。攻撃力9700。
Number 3, Bruno, Tech Genis, Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. This one's pretty strange. Admittedly, not as strange as Bruno's time-traveling android backstory, but just bear with me. In the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds anime, Bruno used Tech Genis as a turbo synchro deck that would play at a breakneck pace and often drop Excel synchro monsters that can make Yusei blush. His Excel synchro summon gave him access to powerful 3000 attack plus boss monsters like TG Blade Blaster and TG Halberd Cannon. Where things take a weird turn is how the deck was used competitively when the cards were released in the last 5D's core booster set, Extreme Victory. While Tech Genis was tailor-made to be a hyper synchro deck, duelists played the archetype in a completely opposite way from what Konami designed. Instead of revving it up with Excel synchro monsters, they played it as a slow-paced stun deck where monster effects were taken completely out of the equation by the likes of Triple Skill Drain. The grand irony of Tech Genis was that even though they allowed you to summon a bunch of monsters from the hand easily, thus easy synchro summons, their floating effects only worked if they were destroyed and wouldn't trigger if used for synchro summoning. Because of this, players basically said to hell with the synchro aspect of the deck, let's just turn off all monster effects and play it as a beatdown deck. If your opponent needed monster effects, they'd be screwed by the skill drain, and even if they did destroy your TG monsters, they would just replace themselves anyways. This might sound like it was too simple of a plan to succeed, but believe it or not, Tech Genis not only did exceptional on the regional level, but it also won a YCS in February 2012. Number 4, Emma Bisho / Ghost Girl, Altergeist, Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains. Much like Aoi Aizen from our last list, Emma Bisho is a puzzling character. She's a widely respected and world-renowned duelist, so much so that she's often handpicked by Akira Aizen, the executive director of the billion-dollar megacorporation Sol Technologies, to carry out difficult assignments and top-secret missions. As impressive as that might sound, her dueling, on the other hand, leaves a lot to be desired. She has a plethora of excellent and high-end cards. Heck, she even uses real-life competitive meta combos.
私は手札からトラップカード無限包容を発動。自分フィールドにカードが存在しないとき、相手モンスター1体の効果をターン終了時まで無効にする。でもトラップを発動できたから、私は手札からオルターガイストマルチフェイカーを特殊召喚できる。
So how in the holy hell does she have a final record of 1-4 in this damn show? Well, that's because she only plays decent at best in most of her duels. Emma is a chronic underachiever. Despite her deck being very strong and incredibly consistent, she's low-key a fairly mediocre duelist who habitually makes poor decisions in her duels. Seriously, she opened with a nearly flawless hand against her brother Blood Shepherd and almost immediately proceeded to throw the entire duel away by searching Altergeist Haunted Rock off of Marionetter's effect instead of, I don't know, something good like Altergeist Protocol or Altergeist Manifestation. Despite her personal shortcomings, Altergeist as an archetype were and still are magnificent in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Their ability to disrupt the opponent numerous times in a turn and grind well into the late stages of a duel have made them a favorite for control players. Emma's Altergeist have seen many levels of competitive success, including numerous regional tops, a YCS win, and even getting second place at the 2018 Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship. Number 5, Zark, Dark Pendulums, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc V. Being the main antagonist of Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc V, as expected, Zark is one impressive dude. He started out normal enough, just a standard excellent duelist who played for the love of the game and to entertain the audience. But after an incident where the crowd cheered Zark for injuring his opponent, he attempted to recreate that situation, and his duels generally became more dangerous to keep up with the crowd's demand. This led to him becoming more violent and power hungry and eventually resenting the crowd entirely. Yada yada yada. Arc V's story is kind of complicated at the end, but one might wonder just how it was that Zark became so powerful that he was considered the strongest duelist in the original dimension. That is, until you look at the cards in his deck. For starters, remembers, the iconic four-dimensional dragons used throughout the show, like Dark Rebellion Exceed Dragon or Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, these were originally Zark's cards, in addition to the new wave of ridiculous Pendulum support that was released in sets like Pendulum Evolution, Maximum Crisis, Code of the Duelist. They were Zark's cards as well. Monstrosities like Astrograph Sorcerer, Double Iris Magician, Supreme King Dragon Darkworm, and Supreme King Dragon Starving Venom, all of which are currently either limited or banned in the OCG or TCG territories. To be honest, about half the cards that Zark played on the anime were just straight up broken, and while this can be said about other Yu-Gi-Oh villains as well, with Zark, even when the cards were slightly nerfed for their real-life physical release, they were still just straight up broken. This led to Pendulum Magicians winning multiple YCS events. Zark had nearly god-level powers in the anime, and his cards definitely mirror that. And also, I just want to make it abundantly clear, all the cards that I mentioned were originally Zark's cards, not Yugioh's. Number 6, Go Onizuka, Goki, Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains. Despite his charitable daily deeds and incredibly positive attitude towards life, dueling, and basically everything, Go is a pretty tragic character. Orphaned at a young age, Go grew up to see the world in a jaded survival of the fittest perspective view. And in case you're wondering, yeah, that's actually how they animated him as a child on Vrains. I didn't edit that at all. Go was often shown in season 1 as a respectable character of high moral integrity. He'd rather lose a duel than sink to unspeakable depths. But after losing to Revolver near the end of season 1, he throws all of that out the window in season 2 in the search of the power to be the best. He basically goes from wrestling superstar to cracked out junkie. If you've ever seen the movie The Wrestler, Go was kind of like the anime version of that. This led to a ton of poor decisions in season 2, most notably Go giving up his Goki deck for the laughably bad Dino Wrestlers. I say this because Goki were without a doubt one of the strongest decks in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Throughout the entire Vrains era. Remember how earlier I talked about Bruno's TG deck and their ability to replace themselves during the end phase in which they were destroyed? Well, Goki put those to shame. First off, they searched immediately when they hit the graveyard. Second, his monsters search every single card in the archetype, not just other monsters.
墓地へ送られた豪気スープレックスの効果発動。デッキから豪気カードを手札に加える。魔法カード豪気再戦を発動。墓地のレベルが異なる豪気2体を守備表示で特殊召喚できる。蘇れツイスト効果ライジングスコーピオン。
Lastly, they didn't just search when they were destroyed, but also when they were used as link materials. This made them the perfect archetype to abuse insanely powerful link monsters like Topologic Gumblar Dragon, Firewall Dragon, and Nightmare Goblin, all of which are banned now. Goki used these type of plays to win the 2018 North American Championship qualifier, extra linking opponents right out of the game turn 1. So let me know what you guys thought of my list, if there were any characters I left off, and also weren't on the first list, leave it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already, and turn on that notification bell for daily videos.
Besides, you intrigue me, Playmaker. The quiet brooding, the fire behind the eyes, how you risked your life to save Blue Angel. I ship it.